because they're hybrid, right? There are at least two kinds of animal smashed together, right? It gave me a way of thinking about what it means to be um, a person who occupies a lot of points of identity. To be Black, to be a lesbian, to be a woman, to be from a working poor background. It like there isn't necessarily a narrative in American culture that accommodates those aspects of my identity. And so going to the mythical beast gave me a way of thinking about what it meant to be so many different kinds of things in one body and how those things could work together and have purpose. Like sometimes there are animals that enter into the poem because there are a lot of animals, and I'm like, why are these animals in the poem? Because I wouldn't have expected it from thinking about the sort of initial set of images and then the subject. So my poems surprise me in really exciting ways. They seem to want to move in really different ways, and I think I'm old enough and mature enough as a writer to hear that and not feel threatened or afraid, but to feel excited. And I think that was not something that I was capable of, I think, even 5 years ago. When I was younger, poems began for me with a title or a first line. And I needed the title, I needed the first line, something to anchor myself as I sort of move through the poem. Now, I think poems begin because there's something that I want to write about. And so I'm thinking about the kinds of images that might be connected to the thing that I want to write about. And once I have that, like I know I want to write about X and here is the image that seems related to X in some way. Then I sort of feel my way in, and it's a lot looser than it used to be. A lot less rigid, a lot less. I am a lot more interested in exploring what the poem seems to want to do. And I think that's a direct product of having done a PhD. Uh, and so that practice of trying to expand and just sort of wander around in a series of texts and think about how they fit together gave me permission in poetry where I felt a lot more comfortable to practice that. And so because that's how I approach writing poetry, even though like I'm doing all of that wandering, and sort of moving things around, a lot of the work that I end up writing ends up feeling, if not publishable, it feels competent. It feels like I made something whole. Boxes. I always think of them as boxes or like bowls, like something that can hold something else. One of the things that poetry does for me is reflects it reflects to me the world in which I live in from a very specific perspective, right? And so the poet draws our attention to things that we might not want to look at, things that are that seem normal or natural, and they make those things strange. If I'm teaching a workshop, I'm like, what's the thing that helps us see the world as particular, as odd? And I think that's a gift. Poetry also helps me see myself. Reading the work of Black women poets, reading the work of queer poets, helps me understand that my experiences don't happen in isolation, that I'm a part of and connected to a larger community. And that matters, and like other people's experiences may not exactly be my experiences, but the places we end up might be similar in some ways. And I feel a deep gratitude for that.